Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on how to gain MMR, the simple way. Before we get into this, here are some credentials for those of you who don't know me. I am a ranked Immortal player on NA servers. I peaked at around rank 3k. I am not a pro player, but I do have league and tournament experience in both Dota 2 and other competitive video games. However, the more important thing you should know is that I bounced around Archon and Legend for about 4 years before deciding that I wanted to gain MMR. From there, it took me about 4 months to hit Divine, and a little over a year later, I was Immortal. Anyone from Herald to Divine can get a lot of use out of the rules I'm about to say, and if you have a certain MMR target, I can guarantee that if you follow these rules, you will make progress towards it. While achieving a 51% win rate and playing a ton of matches is a valid way of raising your MMR, that is not the idea of this guide. This is for people who want to upgrade their icon next month, not next year. So with all that in mind, the very first thing that you have to do is drain the pool. If you're someone who likes to play a variety of roles in ranked, that is the #1 thing that is keeping your rank down. Dota 2 is a game of specialties, just like a traditional sport. You need to pick one role to play and only play it. However, I'm glad to tell you that the position that you pick doesn't actually have that big of an impact on how quickly you will climb. If you are a support player, you should not learn carry in order to get your MMR up. Just pick whichever role you are personally best at and then focus on playing it to the best of your ability for as long as you can stand it. However, now that you've cut all your alternate roles out, the next step is to cut out all of your alternate heroes. My personal recommendation is to pick 3 heroes that cover a variety of circumstances and only play them. I'm a carry player, and the top right is an example of 3 heroes that I would pick if I wanted to get my MMR up in the current patch. You have Ursa as a general catch-all pick for a hero that has a very high win rate. You have Nature's Prophet as an alternate ranged option that gives a lot of strength at the laning phase, and then you also have Phantom Lancer to cheese out enemy teams when you have the last pick. These 3 heroes can be picked in 99% of games, but there are occasionally going to be times where you see an opportunity for a very juicy counterpick. With that in mind, if you get last pick on your team and the enemy locks Pangolier and Timbersaw in the second phase, go ahead and pick up Bloodseeker. These 3 heroes are meant to be the core of your ranked play experience, but they don't have to be all of it. You can throw in some spice every now and again if you see a particularly powerful counter. However, 80% of all of your matches need to take place on this tiny hero puddle. Now, you might eventually get bored of playing these heroes over and over again, crash out, and pick something stupid like Centaur Position 1. If you feel the desire to do that welling up, play some unranked, play some turbo, play something else. Remember that your goal here is not to have fun or to get better at Dota. It is to make number go up, and unfortunately that means putting a lot of toys back in the chest for a while. Still, if you leave this video retaining only one piece of advice, it should be this. Cutting your role selection in your hero pool absolutely will make your MMR go up. Remember, consistency builds championships, and in this case it will eventually build a very shiny medal on your profile. Second is a system that was introduced to me by a high MMR player that I used to be friends with a long time ago. It is very simply titled, the Best of 3. The idea behind the Best of 3 system is to treat your daily ranked grind as a tournament set. This means that whenever you log in to play Dota 2, you should expect to play 3 games. However, you won't always play 3 games because you're going to be treating it like a tournament set. Let's say you queue up for 2 ranked matches and you lose both of them. Well, you've gone 0-2. That means that you've lost. In a best of 3 in a tournament setting, you do not get to play out the 3rd match for funsies. If you want to keep playing Dota, play some unranked, queue up for some turbo, or go be a tourist in ability draft, but your ranked play is done for the day. The purpose behind this is to eliminate the possibility of a losing streak. We'll talk more about the psychology of it in a second, but if you lose 2 games in a row, you will probably lose that 3rd one. Do not dig yourself in a deeper hole if you're already losing. However, let's say your day goes a little bit better and now you've gone 1-1. In this case, go ahead and queue up for a 3rd game and try to lock in. You're warmed up from the previous games, you know exactly how you're playing today. The 3rd game should go well. Play it out, and then regardless of how you perform or whether or not you lose, you're done for the day. The one exception to calling it quits is if you go 2-0. In the same way that going 0-2 means you're more likely to lose, going 2-0 means you're more likely to win. If you're 2-0 and you have enough time and energy to play a 3rd game, go ahead and queue up for it. And if you win that one, feel free to keep hitting that big green play button. However, if you ever lose on your streak, let's say you go 4-1 at the end of the day, you should probably still call it quits. It's also perfectly fine to be satisfied with going 2-0. Feel free to call it then and realize that you've just gained 50 MMR that you didn't have yesterday. The idea behind the best of 3 system is first off to pace yourself, but second off to focus on your mindset. If you're working with a very limited hero pool and only playing one role, the risk of burnout and getting tired of the game goes up. If you're able to limit yourself to just a couple of games a day, your ability to persevere and keep going goes higher, and that means that your MMR will go higher with it. It also lets you build a routine, and if you ever play with a friend, you and your lane partner can slap each other's asses and hit the showers once the games are over. Now, while your in-game performance is obviously the most important thing when it comes to gaining MMR, the second most important thing is what's happening in your brain. Your psychology is going to have a significant impact on how you perform in the game, especially because tilting the enemy team is always an alternate win condition. However, it's also an alternate lose condition, and if you're the one getting tilted, your best of threes are going to go 0-2 over and over and over again. As far as managing that psychology, one of the single best things you can do is to use comms effectively. Being able to open up your mic and convey plans in a calm and calculated manner is going to help not only you, but your team keep it together when things start going south. You can use text chat for this, but note that it is nowhere near as effective and is going to get less and less effective at higher MMRs. Another thing that will help save your brain is knowing when to quit. If you play your first game of the day and multiple people have chosen to feed or smoke into the enemy money tunnel to farm out the rest of the game, it might be good to just call it then and there. I usually would encourage people to keep queuing up if they're 0-1 for the day, but if the game really was that bad, there is no shame in just closing out Dota and opening up Silksong instead. My one recommendation for dealing with this is to not play another competitive game. If you open up Deadlock and suddenly your Lash feeds out of his mind during the laning phase, now that has created a pattern in your brain, and the tilt is going to follow you into tomorrow. Note that managing your psychology doesn't just have to be mitigating the negative effects of other people, it can also be used to boost your own performance. In traditional sports, hot streaks are absolutely a thing. For upwards of 25 years, psychologists thought that fans were finding patterns where they didn't exist, but more recent research has discovered that the hot hand effect is absolutely real. The interesting thing that you should know is that the hot hand effect doesn't just exist in isolation. What this means for you is that performing well on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday means that the odds of Thursday being a good day goes up, even though you're eating, sleeping, and doing the rest of your life between your grind sessions. If you're able to recognize when you're on a hot streak, you'll be able to climb much faster because you can break the rules and hopefully bring that 2-0 up to a 5-0. Still, if you lose a particularly bad match or you feel fatigue starting to set in, call it a day. I wrote a little bit here about how your physical routine can affect your in-game performance. Feel free to read it if you like. Now, I've given you the 3-step plan to raising your MMR, and you can already do quite a bit with just that information, but if you want some extra tips, I've got some more for you. First up is to manage your role queue tokens very carefully. Imagine that you do hit that hot streak. You've won 4 games in a row, you've played great in every single one of them, but all of a sudden, you're out of role queue tokens, and now you have to swap your position. This puts the kibosh on any streak that you could potentially build up, so what I recommend you do is to stock up on tokens like crazy. My preferred method is to straight up farm all 60 of them, hit the limit, then pick your position and start grinding out your MMR. However, this can be a tedious solution and can result in some short-term MMR drops, so I recommend just getting your way up to the double digits. 10 role queue games, which you can in theory get in just 3 matches, is enough to fuel 10 days of the best of 3. If you really resist the idea of playing random positions for several games in a row, you can instead use your first game of the day as a warm-up that also gets you role queue tokens. Keep in mind that it's going to be much more difficult to go 2-0 on any given day with this strategy, but you can make it work. The second extra tip that I have is to wait mid-patch. You do not want to begin your grind as soon as a giant number patch drops and completely reworks the game. You and everyone else will have to adapt to a completely new meta, and games become much more random when no one knows what is going on. Remember that consistency is your goal, so wait for a letter patch or 2 to drop before you decide to buckle down and earn a new medal. The obvious counterpoint to this is that maybe your best hero just got an insane buff, and you should play them now while you can. While you absolutely should have fun playing an overpowered version of your favorite hero, keep in mind that they won't be in the game very long, and you cannot rely on them in the long term. Have your fun, but then wait to really buckle down and grind until the game settles down. Lastly, it is a well-known and scientifically documented fact that people play worse on the weekend. This is because people suddenly have a lot more free time to play video games when they work a normal job and the weekend rolls around. As a result, the matchmaking pool on Saturday and Sunday is much weaker than normal, and you can take advantage of that. However, if you're a more dedicated player, and if you're watching this video, I assume you are, your team only has 4 opportunities to roll a more casual Dota 2 enjoyer. In short, weekend Dota is absolutely something you should take advantage of. Just keep in mind that any win streak you have could be ruined at any moment by a guy who thinks that Maelstrom still builds into Gleipnir. In conclusion, MMR is just a number, and you should absolutely get it. Be sure to take a screenshot of your MMR every time it goes up by an increment of 1,000. Eventually, you can share the image with your friends as the Dota equivalent of your 1 rep max bench press. Peace on planet Earth.